Okay, so if you recall, we just went through the text of Parak Yud Daled, and I gave a little homework assignment. Some people,
I did. I tried.
the dog ate your homework. Is that what you said?
I didn't have a dog.
See, even that makes it even more complicated. Okay, so I'm gonna start. So of course, I got this email from Dalila. It reads as follows. She said, first of all, do you know how much I missed your class? A ton. That makes me feel good. I'm happy. Okay. Can't wait to hear my story. Okay. As for the homework, I'm throwing a lot of ideas at the wall and see what sticks. I hope that they're not too out there. That's the beauty of this, is there's no right or wrong. It's a lot of things. So just to we have this this Shimshon. I'm sorry. I meant Yud Gimel, not Yud Dalet.
Yeah.
My apologies. The woman, and she's barren, and an angel comes and says, and then she goes and tells her husband, and he's like, what? Like, can you get him back? And she gets him back, and he says the same thing to him, and then he says he's going to be a Nazir, and then, well, okay. So, just she wrote three things. Just this is really good food for thought. So, thank you. Hannah, I kept thinking of her story. I think there are a lot of similarities in the two stories. Okay, because it's the haftorah that we read on Rosh Hashanah of a woman who also couldn't have children. I would say there's similarity, but also a lot of contrast, because there she actually davens. She prays for something. Okay, we don't see here. It just says that um, that she couldn't have, right? There is davening here, but the davening here is in Pasuk Ches, which is Manoach. It says Vayetar Manoach. Okay, so Vayetar Manoach. That should automatically, like, kind of just ring your bells, or whatever the word is supposed to use, because the first time that we see that word is in the beginning of Parshas Toldos. It's also great that we're doing it now in these Parshas. We're now learning about, this week is Abraham and Sarai, and the amount of times that it says in Sefer Bereshis about the barren women who could not have children. It's 13:8. 13:8. Right. So Yitzchak, in the beginning of Parshas Toldos, it says, "Vayetar Yitzchak LaHashem lenochach isho ki akarehi, vayeater lo Hashem v'tahar Rivka ishto." So there, the husband is davening, because they're in different corners. They're like, he's davening, she's davening, but the word vayetar, and here it says entreated. Entreated is that he, but here Manoach is not entreating for the child. He wants to know, like, wait, is this guy for real? Can you send him here? So that's an interesting. So like a compare contrast. Okay, two, Aaron's sons. Interesting. Okay, and when we're talking about the first two sons of Aaron's, Shimshon's parents were spared, in contrast to Aaron's sons that died because Hashem didn't accept their carbon. So here they bring some. I wouldn't have gone there, by the way, but it's brilliant to think about that. Is that they bring this offering in front of this angel, and then they see God, and she says, "Oh my God, we're going to die," right? Because when right, so this is because she says, right. He says, "Vayom most namos ki Elokim ra'inu." Right, and she's like, "What are you worried about? Like, you wouldn't have brought us here for that." Okay, so interesting that that Delilah says that Hashem didn't accept their carbon; they were died. It's a very interesting connection. Three, angel encounters. Now this is going to be an obvious one. Okay, so Shimshon's parents encountered an angel, just like Avraham, Sarah, and Yaakov, and that's when Avraham, Yaakov, and I guess Shimshon's parents had the name change and status change. So there's a lot there. Okay, what else did you come up with? What else? Not you. I mean the majestic plural, you.
She was much more believing. He wanted so much proof. Until Angel and up, he didn't believe.
Right. And even after he's there, he's like, well, and
we left, he didn't believe.
Yeah. And even, and what's the I mean, this one has to jump off the page of you also, is after the angel shows up. Okay, if you look in Yud Zayin and Yud Ches, and he says, Vayomer Manoach Malach Hashem Mishemecha. He asks him, like, who are you? Now it doesn't say Mashemecha, it says Mishemecha, meaning like, who is the name that when it comes about that I can honor? He like, in other words, he doesn't want to have any open accounts. He wants to know, like, okay, who do I send the bill to, or who do I send the check to when I get the bill for this wonderful chesed that you're doing for me, right? Who does that go to? And the angel responds with, "Why you ask my name?" Which, of course, we know that with Yaakov. Yaakov, the whole struggle with the angel. If you look at the story, like it's almost verbatim. You came up with that one? Of course you did. You know you did. Don't be modest. Parshas Vayishlach. Here, they had a fight. He says, "Let me go." No, give me bracha. And then he says, "Vayomer love mashemecha." Oh, we got the door is here, and he says, "What's your name?" And he says Yaakov, and he says like it's not going to be Yaakov anymore, but that's what the loser is referring to with the name change. And then he says, Yaakov says to him, "Vayomer Hagida Nashemecha." Tell me please your name, because I'm translating like an Israeli. Tell me please your name. Vayomer Lama Zeh Tishal Lishmi. The exact same line, right? Vayomer Lama Zeh Tishal Lishmi. It's the exact same line. Lama Zeh Tishal Lishmi. The exact same phrase. Lama Zeh Tishal Lishmi. Why do you ask my name? So we have this a couple times. We saw also when Yehoshua encountered an angel and what was going on. So there's that. And what else?
The description to the husband is more extensive and more restrictive. For her, he just says he can't drink wine. For him, he says he can't have wine or anything like raisins.
Right.
But he also tells him, you can look at it positive, negative, but he just tells him more.
Right. So let's look at that. So she says yain v'sheichar and don't have tuma. Okay. And when he speaks to him,
She says just don't drink. He says don't eat.
it says yain v'sheichar teish v'chol tuma tochal. He just adds mikol asher yitzei migefen hayayin. That's the only right. And also you'll notice that when he speaks to when he speaks to Manoach, everything I said, you should take care. He comes to them and he Vayomar ha'ata ish. He says, "Yes, I am." He says, "Ataya vo devarecha maya mishpat anar ma'asehu." Vayomar lach Hashem el manoach mikol sharti el isha tishamer. Whatever I said to her, whatever precautions or sanctions or whatever we call that she has to do, and he lists, and he says, "Now stay, and I'll give you a thing." Interesting, like also what he doesn't say, and this reminds me also coming up in Lech Lecha and in Vayera and Chayesara, is that when the Malach appears to him, he says, what's the first thing the Malach says to her? Vayomer eleha hinena at akara v'lo yoladet. He tells her, you are barren. He does not say that to the husband. Now, why, could be just, being nice. Shalom bayis. We see that actually where in the story with the angels, and that's an encounter with an angel and Hashem, and the angel says one thing, oh, why did your wife say this? And why did you say that? And he says, you're allowed to change the truth a little bit for shalom bayis. Right? So why did you laugh? Why did he laugh? Why did she laugh? Okay, so but first of all, you know the pshat, you know what shalom bayit is.
It's gonna be a joke.
No, I would I ever? It's like she knows me too well. I say to all the chassan and kalas, I say to the chassanim, I say, shalom bayit is, you want shalom? Buy it. That's it. That's all I say. That's all I say. So but they're also like, different, but you're right, different versions of the story.
It's not a whole lot of shalom bayit here. He doesn't believe his wife at all.
He doesn't believe his wife. He's the nervous chalaria. She's the one that's like, yeah, the believer. Yeah. What's the most striking contrast, though, in the story between the husband and the wife? It's so subtle, but it's so obvious. Who's the husband?
No.
Who's the wife?
We don't know.
Oh!
No identity.
No identity. So if you're running like the Chachmas Nashim blog, You should follow that. You know, they give this group Chachmas Nashim. If you're following that, you'd be like, "Oh my God, it's crazy! Oh, you have to have a protest." You know. So Chachmas Nashim is a group of women. I know a couple very well. That they, and rightfully so, they call out like on all of these publications. We should say they refuse to put pictures or images or anything of a woman because might lead to dancing. Okay, we're a little bit more normal than that. What can I tell you? So
But he appears only to her. Why
he-
does he ever appear to him without her running after him?
right? Even when he appears to him, he comes to her first. Okay, so there's something about her, and so yeah, you have the pattern of barren, righteous women, but she doesn't even. It's not like she's in a dire strait or anything. She may not know that she's barren. She just may not have had success thus far. We don't know how old they are, and he appears to her, and then he's like, "Oh, by the way, you can't have kids, but now you're gonna have kids." Okay. And then he appears to him only after coming to her a second time, and she schleps him over. She's like, "No, like he's not gonna believe me." Okay. And then he's like, "Really? What's your name? How do I pay you? What's gonna happen here?" And oh my God, we're gonna die. And she's like, "You dummy," which I'm sure that women have said to their husbands thrice daily. Like, can't you see what's going on here, you idiot? So and and of course she has the bane and she calls him Shimshon. The Mefarshim talk about why Shimshon. Like, what is the name Shimshon? Like, has to do with Shemesh, new sun rising, etc., etc. Okay, what else? Anything else?
Just the Mizbech and Moshe and the fire and the ground. I don't know. There's something that reminds me of Moshe.
Yeah, because he also when his first encounter with God has to do with fire, like
Right.
burning bush-esque. It would have been great if he would have just said, "Oh, take off your shoes." That would be great. Like we saw with Moshe, we saw with Yehoshua. Okay, that's good. These are good. This is very, very, very. This is very good material here. What's most unusual is this whole. Well, what do you make of this whole Nazir thing? First of all, what is a Nazir?
You don't cut your hair, you don't have wine. It's different.
Agent of
So it's like a sixth grader. My biggest struggles now are getting my son to get a haircut. It's unbelievable. He happens to have a very, very good flow, but he viscerally hates getting a haircut. And I won't let him have like long hair. Part of me allows because I was never allowed to have long hair. So it's like vicariously through him, I'm trying to
Did you ask him why he wants longer?
because he likes his flow. He likes the way it looks. It's a hockey thing also.
Oh, yeah.
It's the end.
Why would these parents chosen to have a Nazir?
And what's the point of a Nazir?
Oh,
But doesn't he choose to be the Nazir, not the parents or the?
Not in this case.
here, neither the parents nor the child. Okay, so that's where we have to go back a little bit to, as they say in Yiddish, skvervan. In Parshas Naso, we have the story of the Nazir. Okay, so here we go. The Nazarite. It's the 6th chapter of Bamidbar of the book of Numbers. And here we have, so we know Naso has the encampments, and before we get to all the karbanos of the Nisim, we have a parsha of Sota and a parsha of Nazir. Very, very important juxtaposition, which we're going to see in a little bit. But this was great. They used to ask us on, I think, I heard this in the name of, I think it was Reb Soloveitchik, but I'm not sure. I can't, because I don't remember everything. I only remember nonsense. The important things you'd think I would remember. But Reb Soloveitchik used to ask, allegedly, on the smicha bechinas, like when you would have your oral exam, he would say, "Can a woman be a nazir?" I'd be like, let's start doing the Talmudic calisthenics. He's like, it's an often a pasuk. It says, Daber al b'nei Yisrael elehem ish o isha ki yafli lindor neder nazir lazir Hashem. A man or woman who shall dissociate himself by taking a Nazirite vow of abstinence. So, Nazirite vow is, first of all, what does the word Nazir mean? Nazir, like Nazir, we say Nazir al Rosho. It's a crown. Nezir is a crown. We have it in the Friday Night Zmiris. It appears in Kol Makadish, I believe. Nezir. No, it's okay. It's Barak El Elyon in daytime Zmiris. So what is it? But it's ish or isha kia flee. So there's a whole, by the way, and this is, I'm sorry, I'm in Parshas Naso, and it's 6:2. 6:2. There is an entire tractate of the Talmud called Nazir. There's also an entire tractate of the Talmud called Nidarim. Now, it's a subset, but a very specific subset of Nidarim. So a Neder, what is a Neder? I don't mean the Neder of my existence. I mean a vow, right? And then there's something also called a Shavua, which is an oath. So there's a lot of conversation about the difference between a neder and a shivua, but an oath is, a vow is I vow that I will do X, Y, and Z, or I vow that I will not do X, Y, and Z, or I vow that I will never go to this place, or I vow that I will for sure go to this place. So, and if you don't keep your word, how do you deal with that? So we have Kol Nidre, we have Ataras Nadarim, fine. But a Nazirite vow is really, really a subset of this. And a person decides lahafli to take upon himself, they say like dissociate, lindor neder. Lahafli is pele, okay? By the way, what is the name of our angel here? Vihu peli, right? It's peli, meaning it's hidden. Okay, so another for whatever reason, why does somebody take a Nazirite vow? But let's just see the details first before we say. Miyayin v'shecher yazir chometz yayin v'chometz v'shecher lo yishtev v'chom mishras anavim lo yishtev anavim lachim v'veshim lo yichel kol yemei nizro mikol asher yaseh migefen hayayin mechartzanim v'ad zag lo yochel kol yemei neder nizro tar lo yavar al rosho ad malaos hayamim asher yazil Hashem kadosh yiyeh gadel pera se'ar rosho. So you can't have new or aged wine. You can't drink vinegar of wine. You can't have vinegar of aged wine. Anything with grapes have been steeped, he shall not drink, and fresh and dried grapes he shall not eat. So if you're a Nazir, there's a whole shot. Like, can you have maybe you could have artificial grape soda. There was a hot second when Welch's grape soda was OU. It didn't last because it didn't last. All the days of his abstinence, anything made from wine, grapes, or even the pips or the skin. Okay, so no Gladys Knight for a Nazir. See, I'm glad you got that. Thank you. You cannot eat. You're very good for my ego. I appreciate it. All the days of the Nazirite vow, a razor shall not pass over his head until the completion of the days that he will be Nazirite for the sake of Hashem. Holy shall be he, the growth of hair on his head shall grow. Oh, man. And the last thing is, Kol Yemei Hazir Hashem al Nefesh Meis Lo Yavo, and you can't come into contact with the dead body, the entire. Now, the Gemara says, Stam Nazir Shloshim Yom. If somebody says, I want to become a Nazir, without specifying a specific time frame, it's 30 days. If you want to say more than that, fine. Okay. And you can't. So you have three things: grapes, shaving, cutting hair, and dead body, which are here in our parsha. Okay, you're right. Different versions given to like slightly, yeah. Okay. And that's the Nezer Elokov al Rosho. The Nezer is he has the crown of God on his head, so he can't even go to his mother or father's funeral. Right? The only one who this reminds of like a Kohen Gadol. A regular Kohen is allowed to be metame for 7 relatives: mother, father, sister, unmarried sister, brother, son, daughter, spouse. Okay, but a Nazir is not a Nazir is not allowed to. A Kohen Gadol is not allowed to either. To the Zayin Krovim. The only time, this is a good trivia question, the only one that a Kohen Gadol is allowed to be matame for is? Nope. It's called a mace mitzvah. A mace mitzvah, if he happens upon the road and there's no one else to take care of a dead body, that's a Parshas Emor thing. Okay, fine. Kol Yemei Nizro Kadoshu Lashem. All the days of his absence, he's holy to Hashem. And what happens if a person should die near him? Like, this is a mace mitzvah, and he has to shave his head on the day that becomes purified. On the 7th day, he shall shave it. Okay, fine. And then it goes through the process of like exiting Naziros. Okay, and afterwards, what's interesting, it says you have to bring what's called a karban chatas. You have to bring a sin offering, which is an interesting discussion amongst the Mefarshim as well. Why do you think you should have to bring a sin offering? Like, what sin did he commit? A sin offering is like, if I did a midnight, I did an Avera, I did it, we're learning Zvachim now in Daf Yomi. It's like, oh,
Not
Karbonis,
thinking of it sin, but it's like it wasn't even so desirable to become a Nazir.
So that's the main school of thought is, like, who
Why are you separating yourself?
who are you? Who are you? I always explain this by the way of the scene at Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur. It's like everything's at like the end of the day, and everyone's like really into it, and the Aron Kodesh is open, and then I don't know, like the rabbi runs up to the front, and he's like, "Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm nothing, I'm nobody, I don't deserve this." And the president then runs up, and he's like, "Rebbeinu Shalom, I don't deserve to be, I'm nothing, I'm not." Then all of a sudden, a guy from like row J decides to walk up the aisle and run up there, and he's like, "Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm nothing, I'm not worthy of that." So the rabbi looks at the president and goes, "Oh, look who thinks he's a nobody now." Right? So the like who you're making yourself so holy? Like what a nader does. This is really very, and this is the fascinating, like when we get into the guts of the halacha, what a nader does, it actually creates a new category of mitzvah. In other words, if a person makes a nader and says, I will not, I make a nader, I'm not saying this. That's why we always say bli nader when we say things. You're going to come, I'll see you for coffee, bli nader, I'll be there. Bli nader, But a person says, I will not write in blue ink. This is black, by the way. I don't use blue ink. But I will not write in blue ink. If the blue ink to that person, after making a nader, a bona fide nader, without having it nullified or abrogated or whatever, is like eating pork. Because he has created a prohibition for himself that is tantamount to a new mitzvah. So it's like, who are you making? Why are you making new mitzvahs?
Well, it's like it says somewhere, "Lo spoke to see for lo
Right. So that's an interesting question, how we juxtapose that. Like, you're not allowed to add or so fine. So people say like it should be it's a chet because you're making yourself holier than thou. And therefore, you have to bring an appropriate sort of atonement sacrifice for that. The Ramban has a remarkably different approach to this. And the Ramban Nachmanides says is that he brings a chatas because he decreased his level of sanctity. Because it says all the days of his nazir, he's a nazir, he's kadosh la Hashem. Yeah, we should all aspire to be kadosh. And the fact that now that you're out of that state, that's why you bring chatas, because you left your state of naziris. Okay, be that as it may, it's a nice, interesting, like nazir Torah. We'll come back to that as it follows. Sota. Now, the difference is, which you appropriately pointed out, is how does one become a nazir? You take it upon yourself. Who's another famous nazir? And I'm not talking about the father-in-law of Cook. There was a famous Jew, and he's buried in Har HaZeisim, known as the Nazir. He also had very long hair, but he was a very holy Jew. A very famous Nazir when his which is what Delilah was right onto right away. Okay, where she davens to Hashem. What does she say? Hashem, I want a child. I don't have a child. Penina, exactly. She says, if I have a child, I will dedicate him to you, and he will be a Nazir. Who was that child?
Shmuel.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't hear that.
Shmuel.
Right.
So you want to get like, I'll let you in on some like crazy Freudian stuff right here, right now. Okay. This goes nowhere except for you and the 12 people that watch this. This year, God willing, we're having our 30th wedding anniversary, right? And yeah, so how she put up with me for that long, I don't know. My Hebrew name is Yitzchak Shmuel. My wife's Hebrew name is Chana Sarah.
Ah,
Right? Chana was Shmuel's mother.
uh-huh.
Yitzchak's mother. I mean, do with that what you'd like. In the Freudian world of whatever. Me pretty early on, yeah. Yeah. I didn't like, that's not why I'm Arab, but maybe it is. Maybe it is. Yeah. I'm telling you, we have some funny things with the names. I'm telling you. So Gila, who just called me from Israel a second ago, so she's Gila Hadassah. She actually said it in her bat mitzvah speech. Her initials are GH, Gila Hadassah, and she was born on February 2nd, Groundhog Day. I promise you it's a complete coincidence. They're convinced that I did that on purpose. I did not do that on purpose. Moshe, who has like a million names because he was a long time in coming, and his English name, he's named after my grandfather, Charles Klibanoff, and he's the only now male Klibanoff child, so it's not like he has a lot of pressure on him, no. And his middle name is Jason. Jason was our uncle, my wife's uncle, very, very close to us. He died way too young. So she wanted to call him Jason Charles. And I said, no, I put my foot down. I'm like, no. I said, you are not giving the rabbi's kids the initials JC. Like, it's just not happening, okay? This is the stuff that I think about. So he's CJ, MY, CJK, Moshe Yehuda, Charles, Jason, Klibanoff. He's a lot of names. The only time, like, when we're at the doctor, they have to keep calling us. They're like, Charles? I'm like, oh, it's us. Yeah, so that's what happens. So Shmuel is a Nazir.
Says for him to fill in his name.
This is like it's rough, by the way. It's a rough. Shmuel is a Nazir, but who made him a Nazir? His mother. What's unusual about this is that he's pre-Nazirited.
Right.
It's preordained to this nameless woman, and he's going to be a Nazir. Now, and what's the purpose? We're told why, right? Because hu yachel lo shias Yisrael miyad plishtim. He's the one that's going to. We have this impending doom from the Plishtim, which the chapter leads off with, that the Plishtim for 40 years, the Philistines are giving him a hard time. He's going to be the one that's going to fix them. Now, if you want to say it's because of his, so let's go back to the Nazir. The Gemara says, Rashi actually brings it on Chumash, that first we have the parsha of Sota, and then we have the parsha of Nazir. And interestingly enough, in the Gemara, they're switched. It goes Nazir, then Sota. But in the Chumash, it's Sota, then Nazir. The story of Sota is where you have the unfaithful wife, or the husband accuses the wife of infidelity, and they have to go through that whole process, whatever. And then Rashi brings the Gemara there, and he says, why does Nazir immediately follow the case of Sota? Because it says, Kol haroa es ha-sota b'kilkula. If he sees, it's a medrash from Rabbi Yehuda, if he sees a Sota in her downfall, or in that whole debacle, that whole thing, a guy's yasir atzma min hayayin. He's going to, that's it, I quit. Like, it is possible that sometimes when you see what happens to other people and there are terrible things, that sometimes it's the best remedy for whatever problems you might have. Like, you ever have, not specifically this, but let's say like you're upset about something going on with you, you can't deal, and you see the service that somebody else has, and you're like, I'm good. Like, yeah, right? But there, in other words, there's a breakdown. I'll share with you. Rabbi Hatton writes about this. It's beautiful. There's a breakdown in perhaps the ultimate trust relationship that one can have between a husband and a wife. And he says, that's it. I'm not going to do anything that will further lead to any breakdowns in society. If I start drinking and we lose control, we lose our faculties, whatever it is, I don't want to end up in that parsha. Okay? So we have to use sort of that model, and then we can think about what that means for Shimshon, because it's highly unusual, because it's the only time it ever happened, is that someone is preordained to be a Nazir, which then leads to a whole host of other questions. What about free choice? And what about, like, which is what one of the things I think about is, the story of Yaakov and Esav. The famous medrash when the kids come off to school with the thing, and when she was walking by the shul, and this one is kicking, and she's walking by the Avodah Zarah, and this one is kicking, obviously. So the Mefarshim asks a very strong question, like, wait a minute, when does a person's Yetzer begin? When does a person have an inclination? Is it possible to have an inclination even before you're born? And these are like really good questions. They don't ask that in third grade because you're not thinking like that. He's like, oh, it's a cute story. Oh, Yaakov good, Esav bad. Everything is just so like neatly boxed up. Okay, but when we get older and we start scratching our heads, and you're like, yeah, Rivka was 3 when they got married. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, the math, 37, 3, okay. And then you have a 3-year-old kid. You're like, what? Like, that's bananas. So again, I'm not trying to turn anybody into an apikoros or anything, but these are questions that we have to struggle with when we learn Chumash, but everything at its appropriate time. So let me share with you with Rabbi Hatton. This is really, really interesting. So the preordaining of a Nazir is just that has to be the most striking part of it. And I think you couple that with the nameless person to whom this is designated. And so And the names always do tell us a lot. So what does Manoach mean?
To rest.
Yeah, yeah. So you could say that's an indication perhaps of society. They were in a state of Manoach. And by the way, that's what's the biggest problem that we ever have? In other words, when do we do best? When somebody's after us, when somebody's attacking us, we do great. We do worse when things are Manoach.
So complacency.
Complacency, right? When we're today, the kids would say when we're chill. There are these languages they speak, I don't understand. Like when we have to worry most when everything's fine. Now that like things are calming down in Israel, which is palpable, it's so noticeable. That's what worries me. Is that then they're going to start up all the old nonsense. It'll be a matter of time. The whole point of the here he writes like this, because the Nazarite ship, if that's a word, the Nazarite ship, the Nazirus of Shimshon is a unique and peculiar phenomenon. How we understand it and what might be its meaning in the larger context of the book of Judges. So here we go into the whole story of Nazir and Sota. As I explained, the Gemara says, and Rabbi Yehuda remarks, it's Gemara in Sota, the very beginning of Sota. Rabbi Yehuda says that Koharoa Sota b'Kilkula. If you see that Sota in her disgrace or in her downfall, then he's going to stop himself from wine, which means it's some sort of, but more than that, but a deterrence based on a reaction. It's like a knee-jerk reaction, right? Like they have those commercials on TV about people who smoked. And they show them with like the throats cut out of the and that's meant to be a deterrent. There are 4 instances in Chumash where the Torah has something called hachraza, where after someone is killed by the court, they have to announce that, let's say, a case of an Irani Dachas, or a case of a Mesis Mediach, or the case of Edim Zomamin, or the case of a Zakein Mamre. Those are the 4 cases. So let's take the case of a Zakein Mamre. Zakein Mamre is where you have the large court of 70 whatever, and one of them decides to rule against everyone else, or a Mesis Mediach, someone who tries to convert people out of Judaism. And he gets the death penalty, and it says, and they stone him publicly, and everybody and they have to announce it. They say, so-and-so happened. Why? It's so everybody should hear and listen, and it shall serve as a deterrent. There's always that conversation about, is the death penalty a deterrent or not? Okay? Do you think that when people are committing these terrible crimes, that they're thinking like, oh, well, I'm not going to do this, I might get the death penalty? I'm not so sure that in this country it is, especially since it takes like 1 million years to get the death penalty. And the funniest bit is that when they give the injection, the lethal injection, they first put an alcohol swab on the arm, like they're worried you might get an infection. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Right? Just think about it, right?
Some think about it.
Don't. But so like whoever sees the death penalty, whoever you never, what do you see? You hear about it. Oh yeah, for a crime he committed 27 years ago. And after how many stays of execution, how many, retrials, blah, 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 finally, thank you. The taxpayer's been paying for this for God knows how long, and shkoyach. And then the states have argued for, this state has it, this one doesn't have it, fine. Fine. So it's a vow. He calls it a vow of reaction. So if we put it in the larger context, this is a reaction. In other words, what's been the pattern so far in the book of Shoftim? Oppression caused by bad behavior, caused by entreaty, caused by here's a person that's going to save you, and then everything's going to be okay until we start all over again, okay? Suddenly, a woman is introduced, anonymous and obscure, says Rabbi Han. A vehicle for God's final attempt to change the trajectory of Israel's self-destruction. Like the wayward Sota, Israel has strayed, and without a correction, all is lost. It is precisely in order to highlight God's intervention into the story that the barren woman, the wife of Manoach, must remain unknown and silent. She has no name or background, and she has no prayer in spite of her barrenness, because of the birth of the child will not be the product of her initiative. She's merely a vehicle that God is using to bring about this salvation. That's why, why no name? Dafka no name. Because this is about Hashem trying to do something to give us the refuah for the makkah, so to speak, okay? this messenger comes and tells her that he's going to be saved from the Plishtim, and he's going to be a Nazir, okay, and he's going to be like this his whole day, right? It's a clarion call to the people of Israel that Shimshon will rescue, that now is the decisive moment of choice. The people of Israel must decide: embrace the pagan culture of Canaanim and the Philistine, serve their gods, immerse in their way of life, abandon God and perish, or else react against the scourge of intermarriage and the immorality of idolatry, arrest the decline, and live. Okay? That's so in other words, this is if the Nazir is a reaction to what's seeing, so this should be the people's reaction. Okay, God is giving you a Nazir. He's giving you something to happen. This is your reaction time. This is your test. By the way, we've seen it over and over. Now, the further away we get from Sinai or from all these things, what happens is the test becomes harder, or the challenges, or to overcome that challenge becomes so much harder, because again, the last couple of heroes that we've seen were not like so I. They're not Moshe Rabbeinu. They're not Yeshua. Not even the beginning. Yiftach, we said, yeah, Yiftach in his generation, he was great. But in another generation, be nothing. That's the whole Noach conversation we had last week. So they have to figure out, can they break this cycle? Okay? So therefore, this is the meaning of the curious arrival on the scene of the woman's husband, Manoach, who otherwise contributes little to the advancement of the story, as men generally do. Contribute little to the advancement of the story. And we know how things get done, right? We know. See, you give me that face, the all-knowing face, right? I agree.
I don't think that is out of line.
I do. We just have to think that we're doing something. After the messengers appeared and transmitted God's communication, she shares the news with her incredulous husband, who then requests of God the messenger return. Right? He looks like a bit of a doofus in the story. I don't know, but a word what'd you say? She just told you. Okay. And then he comes again. Wait, what's your name? And where do I send the check? Oh, and oh my God, we're going to die. She's like, maybe she doesn't want to be known. Right? Really? I can't believe I married you. And he returns. He communicates nothing substantially new except this: all that I said to the woman you shall observe, all that I commanded her you shall do. He attempts to show deference to the visitor. The entreaties are curtly rebuffed, and when the caller betrays his angelic origins by ascending heavenwards into the flames of the makeshift altar, when Noach fears death, again his wife reassures him and proves herself to be undoubtedly the more sensible and discerning of the two. Again, not unusual. Manoach, whose name, this is the part that it means rest, cessation, complacency, right, represents that part of the people's psyche that prefers inertia over the challenge of growth. Canaanite comforts over Israelite mission, reluctance to culturally disengage in contrast to the wife's enthusiastic embrace of the visitor's startling words. The angel's barb is therefore well placed indeed. All that I said to the woman you shall observe, all that I commanded her you shall do. While the anonymous woman is slated to soon become the instrument of God's salvation, her husband, Manoach, will quickly fade back into the murkiness that is his wish. For though he remains part of the account through chapter 14, he is never mentioned by name again. It's not, of course, that Israel are to suddenly adopt the Nazirite lifestyle of Shimshon, okay, but rather they are to begin to internalize the uniqueness of their rescuer's calling, recognizing that their own response to their dire situation cannot be one of business as usual. Rather, they must cry out, not against the political oppression that weighs so heavily upon them, but rather against the social injustice and the communal hurt, the moral devastation, religious ruin, the denial of meaning and higher purpose, and the headlong embrace of spiritual shallowness that all go hand in hand with enthusiastic worship of the Canaanite pantheon, the bankrupt gods that champion ritual over content and empty incantation over that which is noble and pure. That's a really long, good sentence, but that's the story over and over and over and over again.
And she's not named because this way it'll be more universal. It's not
Exactly. B'diuk. You did do your homework. Of course you did. It's all how you finish. That's exactly the point. And that's exactly what they're trying to convey to us. And that's why they bring my point is, when you read this, it should stir up within you, this story and that story, this story and that story. Yeah. And what? It's all the same. It's all the same. Why does God test us? Why? To make sure that, we get the point. Now, sometimes we need a lot of tests, which, by the way, is the explanation why, let's say in terms of the rigidity of halacha, it's much more rigid for men than it is for women in a lot of ways. Like the concept of like learning Torah all the time or davening 3 times a day, which is not because men need it. They need that rigid structure. They need to be like constantly put into place. That's one school of thought of looking at this. I'm not saying that's the only school of thought, but that's definitely a school of thought, is that we need constant, like, keep you in line, or else you're gonna get into a lot of trouble, right? Like we're in the period now, like, I don't know, like, can I leave my 10-and-a-half-year-old son home alone for any amount of time? I think,
Depends on the kid.
I think so, yes, but my, then again, I'm like, I don't know. And the flip side is, well, he doesn't have a phone. I'm like, oh, that he's not getting a phone. That is not happening. Okay, that is just not on. But the throughout Tanakh, that's exactly the struggle that we have. Is the people, they fall into this pattern of complacency. That's the most important word I think you'll use here is complacency. Everything's fine. We're good. We're good. And that happens in our ritual life. It happens in organizational life. Is that we have to constantly be like, every day you have to have something like the Gemara says, you have to have a chiddush every single day. There's something new every day. Because if we keep saying same old, guess what? The same old of 10 years ago is not the same old of today. It's not going to work. We saw that with Moshe and Yeshua. We discussed that last week, that Moshe was a ruler of a nation that, you hit stuff. And by the time the next generation comes, you don't hit rocks. You talk to them. You talk about their feelings. You have to, like, I want you to be seen. I want you to be felt and heard, or whatever you're supposed to say today. I don't know, right? I go to these meetings with younger colleagues, and like, I don't even know. I'm scared to say anything for fear of like the fact that like I'm on a Zoom and right now, as he just says, Rabbi Klobuchar, that I don't have pronouns listed after it. I feel like am I going to get canceled now? Like, am I in trouble? Right? I mean, it's amazing. So I sometimes there's universal things. I don't know if you saw this, that the I wasn't here the Shabbos, obviously, but had I been here, I would have spoken about it. But there was this letter that went around. Over 1,000 rabbis signed this letter, expressing great fear about what's happening in New York City. Great. And it made news also about some people who didn't sign it. That's a whole other thing. That's not for me. I was on this like little committee that was involved in getting this together. And the fact that they got so many so quickly. So when it was published in the official form, so they were smart, they published all the New York rabbis first and then everybody else. But when we put this together, we were hoping, we were hoping with this response, and it was on every major news outlet, on TV, even the New York Times, like, even. So that's one of the things where, like, okay, I don't have to worry about hurting anybody's feelings because it's so important right now. And it did actually have a tremendous effect. And we were just trying to keep this momentum going. If you look at some of the polling in the last couple of days, it's improved. And I'm still not entirely hopeful. I'm realistic about this, but it's like a little too late, which is why we're having this talk Friday night. We're having a Friday night talk in shul with a kiddush. It's a hot kiddush. Friday night hot kiddush. I mean, that's like a novel thing. But because Shabbos is early enough. But to talk about exactly like why we need to identify these things long before it gets too late. We as Jews, and we as God-fearing Jews and as God-following Jews, we have to not wait till we get to the reaction point. We have to always be ahead of the game. Because if we all wait collectively till the reaction point, then God's going to send us a Nazir. And we're going to get the message like, oh, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. If only I had done this. How many times in your life have you said that about anything? If only I had. If I had, like you hear how somebody, oh, if I only invested in this, if I only bought my house then, if I only, whatever it is. But religiously, do we ever ask that? Had I only stayed and learned, have I only like learned Hebrew better? Had I only like gone to Shiur, like, whatever it is. But that's exactly the point. And this is what Nazir. So, and Shimshon, by the way, it has nothing to do with the Nazir necessarily about your like taming your urges and this and that, because Shimshon would not be the ideal candidate to represent that ideal, as we're going to see. But this is such an important introduction as we get now into the life of Shimshon and the battles that he's going to have with the Plishtim. And it's also good to see that we're going to have the, like places in Israel that we know. So like it's also good to, like, biblically speaking, to know where we are. So but there's a lot. This is rich with, when you look at these textual similarities or these conceptual similarities and contrast, it's really, really important to spend time doing it. That's why we actually spent more than time than normal on one parak, but and well done on the homework, and Delila gets an A. So does everybody else. But Yeah, okay.
Thank you.